Wel, prynhawn da I chi gyd a chroeso cynnes i'n bleddyr disgleirio golau ar arweinyddiaeth gano. Good afternoon to you all and a very warm welcome to you. It is a really wonderful thing to see so many of you logged on to this afternoon's blether shining a light on middle leadership. This blether, Comra, or Sgwrs, is the third in its series and a celebration of the Tri-Nations partnership between Education Scotland, the Centre for School Leadership Ireland and the National Academy for Educational Leadership here in Wales. This blether, this event, this collaboration demonstrates how we can work with and learn from each other to enable a better informed and supported education system within and across our jurisdictions. Last week, I sat in on the briefing session and listened to 6 middle leaders from across the 3 jurisdictions share their passion, their enthusiasm, their honesty, and their vision for leadership. So I know that this afternoon session will leave you feeling inspired because these 6 professionals are truly inspirational leaders themselves. I'd now like to hand over to Anna May Rooney from Ireland, who will go over the housekeeping. Anna May.
Thank you, Tegwin, and it's an absolute pleasure to be here this afternoon. I'm Anna May Rooney. I'm the Deputy Director Primary of the Centre for School Leadership in Ireland. I've got the simple job this afternoon. I'm going to just take you through the practicalities of the session. So we really encourage you to post comments, questions and thoughts into the chat box as the speakers are speaking, so that then when they're all finished, Sue and Donal, who are facilitating a question and answer session, will use your comments, questions and thoughts to do so. So please type as you're listening. We'd really encourage you to do that, and we'd love to hear your thoughts as these wonderful middle leaders speak to you this afternoon. And just to remind you all that the event is recorded and that recording is available to people afterwards, those who are unable to get a ticket to attend the live event. So just that you all know it's being recorded. So that's the end of the practicalities, and I am now going to pass you over to our first speaker, who'll introduce herself, and it's Natalie. So over to you, Natalie.
Hi there everyone, my name is Natalie Gallagher and I'm Principal Teacher at Nethermill Primary School in Dumfries and Galloway. It's in the southwest of Scotland. So just a quick bit about the structure of teaching, the structure and management in Scotland, because I know it's slightly different in Wales and Ireland. So we have head teachers who lead and manage the school. We then have deputy head teachers, but not all schools have deputy head teachers. We then have principal teachers, which I am, and then we have our class teachers. So at the current stage, principal teachers are the only middle leaders within Scottish education. So a bit about my school. So Nethermill Primary School, small rural school. We only have 26 pupils in the whole school. We have 2 classes. So I teach the primary 1 to 4 class, where I have 4 to 8-year-olds. I only have 12 pupils in my class, and my colleague, she teaches the primary 5 to 7 class with the other 14 children. So it's a very small school. We are part of a partnership arrangement, which means that we have 1 head teacher that's shared between 2 schools, so ourselves and another close by rural school. So that means that our head teacher is only there for maximum half of the week, and the other half of the time I'm the first port of call, really. So a bit about my background. So as a teacher, even as a student teacher, as a probationer teacher, I was always interested in leadership. I was interested in how people became a leader, what made them inspiring, did they have any extra qualifications, and just how did they get to that position in the first place. So as a teacher, right from a probationer, I always took on extra responsibility within my class, whether it be organising trips away, taking the school choir, leading small areas of change within my school. I was always interested in just doing that extra bit out with class teaching. So I then looked out for other opportunities, and that's when I started the teacher leadership programme through the Scottish College for Educational Leadership. And it was through that really that I realised I was already doing so much within my own class as a teacher leader, and I felt like I wanted to move on and progress. So I then looked for other opportunities for more formal qualifications, and that's when I started embarking on a master's in enhanced practice in education. And I studied for 3 years part-time alongside working full-time, which was quite a balance. But even in relation to being at university the first time round, I feel like during embarking on the Masters that I really learned so much more because I was able to relate it directly to practice. One of my favourite modules within the Masters was a leadership and management module, and it was really from then that I realised that I did want to move on and progress as a middle leader. But I did ask myself quite a few questions. Did I have enough experience? How would I manage being left in charge? Did I have enough authority? But again, when I questioned myself, I realised that I was doing so much already and that it was quite a natural next step for me. And I needed a challenge too. So within Dumfries and Galloway, because it is such a widespread rural area, most of the principal teacher posts are within small rural schools. Partnership schools. So again, I considered, did I really want to be within a small school? I was always used to slightly bigger schools with more pupils, more staff, more colleagues. But again, I realised that I wanted to progress, so that was the next step for me. So the first job I applied for as a principal teacher, I was unsuccessful. So I had to then go back and think, what else will make me stand out from the crowd? But actually the main thing was being able to sell myself. I really needed to show what I did already and what I could do and that I was willing to learn. So then in my next interview, I got the job, and that's the post I've been in for nearly 3 years now. So opportunities within a small school as a principal teacher, as a middle leader, are quite varied. Relationships in any school are paramount, but within small schools, I think they're even more important. Some of the children that I will teach for up to 4 consecutive years, so it's important that you really build the relationships with the children, their parents, and also the local community, because small schools really are at the heart of the community. I am mostly class committed, which is a good thing. I still get to see children learn, develop and progress. And I have experience in so many different areas, very different from a larger school, whereas I might have a specific remit as a principal teacher in a larger school, whereas in my small school, I'm very much a jack of all trades. I'm also the first point of contact, so I think that's a great opportunity again to build up relationships and really develop my knowledge and skill as a middle leader. I think one of the important things as a middle leader is looking out for opportunities to learn and develop when you're in the role. Don't wait for opportunities to jump out at you. You need to go and look for them yourself. So I took part in the Education Scotland Middle Leadership programme, Leading Change, and it really helped develop my knowledge and skill as a middle leader. So challenges, of course, with opportunities come challenges. Again, great first step, being a principal teacher in a smaller school, but there's not many staff to lead. So I feel like that's something that I would like to develop in future as my leadership of people. The school role in my current school is falling due to a large number of primary 7s moving on to secondary school, which means that there's the potential for me to be teaching a primary 1 to 7 class within the next couple of years, which would mean I would have no other colleagues really apart from a head teacher. So again, that's something that I need to consider for the future. Is that where I want to be, or do I want to progress and move on elsewhere? I have little management time, so I have half a day every week for management time. So it's quite a lot to cram into a small period of time, and I really need to, I suppose, protect and manage my time and consider what time I'm spending planning for my class and assessing and so on, and what time am I spending on my principal teacher part of the role. I would like to do more, but I need to consider also, like we all do, the work-life balance, which is always tricky. Progression within middle leadership in Scotland currently is quite tricky. Within Dumfries and Galloway, we are all principal teacher 0.1 of an 8-point scale. So there's no room really for any progression within middle leadership. So again, I need to consider, would I want to make a sideways step to be a middle leader in a larger school, or would I want to move on to senior leadership? So there's lots to think about. But I suppose if you're a middle leader or you're a teacher and you're considering middle leadership, you really just need to think about what you do already, what makes you stand out from the crowd, and what will you bring to the role? How will you manage that being the middle between a class teacher and a senior leader? How will you deal with that type of scenario? But most of all, are you willing to learn? And I think from my perspective, I always thought that I had to know everything before I went into a role as a middle leader, but that's truly not the case. You learn on the job, there's so much to learn. But middle leadership is so important. It's a really privileged position to be in, being in the middle, still having that class contact, but also having the ability to have more input and more say into shaping the school that you're in. So I really hope that's been helpful and interesting to hear about being a middle leader from a small rural school perspective. And I'm going to pass you on to Claire, who's from Wales.
Thank you, Natalie. Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for having me. My name's Claire Freeman, and I teach at Ysgol Conway, which is an 11 to 18 mixed high school in North Wales. I'm a pastoral leader. So for those of you not familiar with that term, that basically means I'm a head of sixth form at the moment, and I have been head of year in the past. So I'm responsible for the wellbeing, behaviour, conduct, and general progress of students within my designated year group. Whilst I'm head of six now and have been a head of year in the past, I've also been a head of department, but pastoral leadership is absolutely my passion. And it's that aspect that I do want to speak to you about this afternoon in terms of how I got there, but also some experiences and challenges I've experienced. So when I first moved to Wales from England a good few years ago, I'd got two young daughters and I'd left a role as head of department behind. And I was working part-time, and I kind of felt that my time as a middle leader was over, at the very least until my daughters were a little bit older and I was able to commit myself to my role again. However, when I got appointed at my current school, I was really lucky to have a head teacher and a pastoral lead who had a really innovative and flexible approach to leadership, because they appointed me as a head of year, despite the fact that I only worked 4 days a week, which is actually incredibly open-minded and brave. It's not something that happens often, and in my opinion, not anywhere near enough. It showed me confidence, and it was breaking convention, and it gave me the opportunity to progress in my career as a leader, whilst at the same time prioritising my family, which for any people out there who are trying to juggle that, know that's not an easy balance at all. The transformational leadership that they showed inspired and motivated me, definitely, but it also showed me that great leadership is about an awful lot more than simply the tasks you complete and the job that you do on a daily basis. In terms of my experiences and observations, a key aspect of my role I wanted to talk to you today about is, as a head of sixth form or as a head of year, it's my role to bridge the gap between staff and between students, never more so than when they are at times of conflict where I need to mediate between the two. As far as our students go, I need to advocate on their behalf. So I need to first of all calm them and bring them down off the ceiling. I need to articulate their point of view. I need to make sure that they feel that they are understood. Even in fact, if I'm very cross or annoyed or I'm disappointed in them, they still need to know that I'm there to fight their corner and I am there to understand them. But at the same time, as a professional, I have to show the staff I work with that I am supportive of them and I understand where they're coming from. And I need to ensure that they don't leave any situation wherever in feeling undermined at all, because that wouldn't be good for relationships going forwards. So a part of my role that I feel is very much thinking on my feet is, in every individual unique situation, I need to calm the situations down. I need to be able to advocate on behalf of both the students I work with and the staff I'm working alongside in order to help them find common ground and kind of navigate through all the little problems in the way, whilst at the same time maintaining that integrity of both relationships going forward, because that's really important. It's not just about the individual situation, it's about the relationships going forwards. And that aspect of my role requires a huge amount of emotional intelligence, being able to pick up on each of the individual personalities that I'm dealing with, and being able to understand the circumstances in the situation, what the desired outcome is, and try and get them there together. So that's a key part of my role I wanted to share with you today. Another thing I wanted to talk about was a part of my role that probably challenges me most. And that is, as a self-confessed control freak and perfectionist, teaching probably was an interesting career choice, not least being a pastoral leader. That role means that any plans I make generally go out the window by about 9:30 in the morning. It's an incredibly reactionary role. And for me, who likes to be in control and like to manage things, that's actually quite difficult. And I've spent the last 7 years learning to deal with that. And what I've learned is that if I reflect on every single situation as I handle it and think about how I've dealt with that and what I could have done better and what I could have changed and what the outcome was and what I did well, I'm slowly building myself a toolkit. So what used to be being out of my comfort zone is now something I'm very, very comfortable with, and I've got that fallback. But then there was the pandemic. And even though I was quite used to dealing with unknowns in my situation at school, the pandemic threw us into completely uncharted territory. We just didn't know what we were doing, and we were on the front line. As pastoral middle leaders, we had to adapt and respond really, really quickly to support our students in particular, as the focus kind of moved from health, then onto well-being, and then onto academic performance, and then all the way back again. And we had to move very quickly with what they needed us to lead them on at a time where actually it was very, very open and public. Usually as a head of year or head of six, the conversations that we have are on one-to-one, small groups, in classes or in assembly halls. During the pandemic, everything was live and it was broadcast to what felt like the entire world at the time. But all of our colleagues and peers, students, parents were watching every aspect of our leadership live broadcast. And that put us in a very, very vulnerable position. And I know that myself and the other heads of year at the time felt very, very daunted. However, how we dealt with that is something I'm incredibly proud of. And all of the heads of year I worked with at the time, we actually came together and were able to work together in a way that we would never have achieved in the normal day-to-day, life of school. We realized that even though we had the same job, we had very different strengths, very different skill sets, and we were able to lean on each other, support, coach, mentor, listen, and guide each other through each of the things we were trying to do in terms of leading our year group. And we were able to demonstrate our response to this chaos and upheaval quite openly and quite publicly. And I think that actually made us much better as individuals, as individual leaders, but it also made us a much better team and gave our students and the staff that we work with a really strong role model in resilience. So for me, even though that losing control aspect of my job is something that challenges me most, I've actually found that the time when I was thrown the most during the pandemic was the time that I actually feel like I came on most as a leader. So I wanted to share that with you. And just finally, before I leave you today, I had to think about what I would have wanted to know before I became a middle leader. And it was actually very similar to what Natalie just said. It's that it's okay not to go into every situation having all of the answers. I think for me, the great leaders I've seen in the past don't inspire others, and they didn't inspire me by getting it right every single time. I think your strength as a leader comes down to your ability to respond with understanding, integrity, and a clear sense of direction. So that's just a couple of aspects of my career shared with you. I hope it's been helpful. And now I'll hand over to Jonathan in Ireland. Sorry, Diolch.
Hi there, thanks Claire. My name is Jonathan MacDonald and I am an Irish and history teacher in a secondary school in Galway in the west of Ireland. When I think about middle leadership, my interest really began at the beginning of teaching practice when we were introduced to a framework document called Looking at Our Schools. This new document grounded a new structure for leadership and management at both primary and post-primary level here in Ireland under 4 key domains. And I remember being inspired by the scope covered within this new system and the awareness of how leadership positions and opportunities can occur across very different aspects and areas of school life. So when I first began teaching practice, I sought opportunities to put this interest into reality and began linking with school leaders and becoming involved in various working groups. There was a huge culture of collaboration and volunteerism within the school, and our senior leadership, our principal and our deputy principal, was very encouraging and supportive and motivating, and inspired all of us to work with different leaders and try out different initiatives and learn from different people and be part of various working groups. From this, I think I realized that school self-evaluation was an area of interest and passion for me. It was a process that had just began in Irish schools, but within it, there was scope for schools to look at areas in their own context that they could look at improving. It features really about looking at improving teaching and learning and the overall effectiveness of a school. And as an aspiring leader, I was interested in bringing differentiated learning to the table, and I engaged with middle leaders and senior management about putting together a focus group, and which led into a working group, supported all the way through. And this followed into some presentations at staff meetings, where we introduced the idea and the area of focus. We got to encourage discussion around differentiation, show that it was going to be a process that would be slow and steady, and the supports that would be available for staff, and that it would be hopefully something that could become sustainable and that will become part of our culture. I was nervous, I think, initially about the presentations, but coming away from it, it was something I really, really enjoyed. And the fact that the conversations happened and they continued at department level and they continued to be part of subject planning and assessment meetings, that it was I realized that it was something that I was very interested in, and that I would love the opportunity to become a middle leader and to continue looking at school improvement at this level. So when the opportunity for middle leadership came, other responsibilities came along with it. I continued in the capacity of school improvement and school planning coordination, but I also became responsible for student teachers on teaching practice, which was something that was extremely interesting to me because I am teaching in the school that I began my teaching practice in. So to be able to give back some of the support and some of the learning and the opportunities that I was given as a student teacher was incredible. I link with the student teachers on a weekly basis. Again, every day, every week brings about something new, brings a freshness to the role. I look at supporting their professional learning and their professional experience, and looking at different aspects and ways to involve them in areas of school life. Again, at the meetings, some might look for some guidance or support around teaching and learning. Others might be looking for some strategies in relation to behavioral management. So it's a fluid process that kind of keeps it open, and it's a rewarding process to see them involved and to see them flourish and develop as teachers and as part of our school community. I guess for me, really being a middle leader, at times you're a buffer between senior management and staff. You absorb some of the small scale disturbances and maybe answer some of the questions. But ultimately, you're a classroom teacher. And particularly for me, within my role within SSE coordinator and school planning, I get the opportunity to live out these initiatives on the ground. And that's something that supports me in getting the buy-in and getting people to come in with initiatives and to trial them out, because I'm seeing them firsthand. I'm seeing the pitfalls, seeing the successes, being able to critique your own practice, and it adds that extra dimension for me as a teacher and also as a middle leader, that maybe the initiative needed a bit more planning, maybe it needed to be more refined, could have been too narrow focused, it might have been pitched at the wrong time of the year. So that gives me another dimension to look at how I move forward with an initiative, how I introduce it, how I reflect on it in myself. And it also gives the opportunity to spark interest in somebody else and maybe look at the skill sets of the staff that you have, and maybe focus an area or an initiative in an extracurricular domain, or maybe in a well-being domain, that maybe unlocks that leadership capacity in somebody else, that continues that culture of collaboration, brings people along. Because I guess schools for all are learning communities. We're learning all the time. As Claire referenced, with the pandemic and with school closures, staff and students and leaders had to become adaptable. We had to reconfigure learning, and we had to reconfigure how we led and how we assessed. And it gave us the opportunity to reinterpret our own practice and to reimagine what best practice is. And that middle ground that you have, I suppose there was learning in that, and it gave a chance for us to capitalize on what worked well and how what we may have perceived was never possible is now possible. So it opens up even, you know, those skills that people have that maybe they might have been slightly afraid to bring to the table, but it's that encouragement that we all got through that and we adapted as best as we possibly can. We're moving into a new scope that we can look at what's important for it. I guess it doesn't come without its challenges. Time, it can be against it, and getting the balance between work life, teaching, your preparation, your own marking with your own classes, and also the different initiatives. When you're planning them, you don't want change to be happening too quick because you want it to be meaningful and you want it to serve a purpose, and to continue that buy-in and that support and that collegiality. But I guess being a middle leader ultimately for me is an honor, and to be part of a team that's working with the school to foster a learning community, and to support and encourage others to be involved so that school is enjoyable and school is a place of development for all. And I guess for me as a middle leader, I look forward to continuing to develop my own skills and to learn about myself and to look forward into how education is going to develop between, you know, schools being in some ways complex organizations. They're changing, society is changing, the education is changing, differing learning profiles, and to be best able to support and guide schools through these obstacles and the opportunities that provides for middle leaders. So for me, I hope to be able to inspire another leader, to inspire people to be involved, to understand the benefits and the learning that comes from it, and to see the merit in how it can really support and embed you in a personal and in a professional manner. So that's one half of the Irish story. I'm going to pass you over now to Hannah, who's going to continue on in the Welsh context of middle leadership. Thank you.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Jonathan. Hi, everybody. So I'm Hannah Cogbill, and I'm part of the leadership team at Caddixton Primary School in Barry, South Wales. So we're a two-form entry primary school with just under 500 learners on roll from nursery all the way through to year 6. So I'm going to start by telling you that I do really love a quote. So there'll probably be a few in here today. So I'll start off with one. So life as a teacher begins the day that you realise that you're always a learner. So my current roles and responsibilities include that I'm a year 3 teacher, so learners of 7 to 8 years of age. I'm a STEM lead, a community engagement and parent learning lead, and then a phase 2 learning and teacher lead. And then also lead for the National Professional and Inquiry Project. I have time and space that's embedded into my day-to-day routine every week to make these things happen. So firstly, I'm going to share a little bit about my why, my what, and my how of my teaching, learning and leadership journey. So I began my teaching career at the University of Wales, Trinity St David, where I undertook a degree over 3 years that was solely focused on primary school teaching. My next adventure was at Caddixton Primary School, and I do really love to compare it to an adventure because I feel that every day is different and it fills me with that excitement. Here was where I was inspired by that great transformational leadership in action, and it gave me that real drive to make a difference and that I wanted that and to seek those opportunities. I've been so lucky by the amount of support and belief that I've encountered from my senior leadership team. So 2 years ago, I completed a master's in professional practice alongside teaching full-time. But it was so amazing because it was linked to the day-to-day practice and what I truly loved, learning, teaching and leadership. Over the last 2 years, I've worked really closely alongside a coach to explore myself and really develop that greater sense of self-awareness and development. So this included personality tests, exploring the 24 character strengths and identifying my own bad habits. This supported me in understanding 3 core areas. Number 1, my values. Number 2, what do I lead for? And number 3, what do I care about? This was a key starting point for me, and it really focused on what my priority was. So what was essential for me as a leader right now? During this time, I also read a book called Essentialism, and I asked myself 3 key questions. Is it the right thing? Am I doing it for the right reasons? And is now the right time to make it happen? So just a few bits about my values. So I like to be seen as being empathetic. I like to help people feel valued. I like to have an opportunity to continue to learn. I like to be seen as a driver. I like to be trusted and honest with others, and then making others feel respected. So what do I lead for? I lead to make a difference to the lives of learners, staff, and the widest community, to inspire and influence others to make that positive change and impact on people's lives, and supporting them to succeed and flourish. I've got that desire to spread love, happiness, and understanding in a world where everybody feels that sense of greatness. And then what do I care about? So I care that making decisions that have a difference and have an impact, and empowering others to succeed and encouraging them to flourish, to feel how you once felt yourself. So another little quote, you're not a leader until you've developed a leader who's developed a leader. So start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. As you can see, all of this feeds into my preferred leadership style, which is compassionate leadership. I strive to enhance the happiness and well-being of people by supporting them and giving them what they need to excel and flourish. You can't do it alone, but you can do it with a great team. So start with your why. Why leadership? What do you want to be remembered for? How are you going to do it? And what are you going to do? I continually use the Simon Sinek way of thinking when exploring these ideas myself. So I always begin with the end in mind. When I really understood myself and my vision for leadership, and this was clear, it allowed me to really focus on others and people and developing those, to have that greater sense of stronger team cohesion and development, so you were able to build a greater capacity together. After all, it takes a village to raise a child. A huge motivator for me was also professional learning, something that was embedded into our school culture at Cadoxton Primary School. It was that opportunity to continue to learn and develop and learn alongside our learners. Something that was valued, but also allowed me to strengthen my strengths, develop my weaknesses, and focus on my own vision and mission through inquiry, through exploring and deepening thinking, through researching and finally reflecting. And exploring the so what. Reflecting is one of the key main points there. So having that opportunity to stop and think, what impact has this had? What has been the purpose of it? Our local consortium also run leadership courses where you can challenge and champion thinking across schools. And this is an opportunity to come together and collaborate. They do this for both middle leadership and senior leadership development programmes. To end today, I just want to refer back to the theatrical model of middle leadership in schools by John DeNoble. So this blend of support from senior leadership, professional development, school culture, enthusiasm, drive, and knowledge of the curriculum, pedagogy, and assessment have all supported and continue to support my successes and development within my leadership roles. For me, it's always been about experiencing the joy in the journey, lighting that passion to make a sustainable difference. And we're going to end with a wonderful quote. Leadership is about making others better as a result of your presence and making sure that the impact lasts in your absence. Thank you for listening. I'm now going to pass over to Neil in Scotland.
Thanks, Hannah. Thanks so much. Really, really interesting there. And greetings from Scotland as well, people. My name's Neil Valentine. I'm a principal teacher guidance, and I work at Musselburgh Grammar School in East Lothian. I've been doing that role for about 3.5 years now. I absolutely love it as a role. Every day is different. It's one of the main things that I got into the job for, I think, as well. A wee bit about the role, because I think, it's similar to what Claire was talking about down in the Welsh context. But in Scotland, I've got a caseload of 200 pupils. And I've got overview of all their well-being, tracking and monitoring, managing all interventions and concerns, and also, being the buffer, as other people have said, between teachers and pupils and parents and agencies, all that sort of stuff. I suppose in reality, the majority of my time, though, is probably spent with just 10% of that caseload for various reasons. I still teach as well. I've got 7 periods teaching on my timetable, and above and beyond that, I've got department and whole school responsibilities to squeeze in as well. I've got no direct responsibility for managing any staff, and there's pros and cons to that. So my experience of how did I get here, I suppose I had 3 different paths, if I'm honest. I had one that was a dead end, I had one that was a giant leap, and one that was kind of a bridge to my current role. So I'll tell you about all 3 of those. In my first school, when I was just starting out as a teacher, I didn't really strive for leadership, but I was enthusiastic and I wanted to get involved in as much as possible. I became, there was lots of opportunities for delegated leadership opportunities, and so I became the school's outdoor learning champion. I was allocated maybe 1 period a week for that, so no sort of remuneration or any sort of badge or anything like that. It really was just a bit of time to do what you could, I suppose. And I like to think I really rose to that challenge. I used that time to take on, for example, coordinating Duke of Edinburgh, leading residential trips, doing some cluster work and whole school development work as well. Didn't always manage to allocate and use all that time, but and I learned good project management skills at that time by doing that approach. And even if it was just 1 small action a week, I really felt like I was able to make a difference there. And there wasn't many jobs in that area, and I realised then it was a bit of a dead end I was getting myself into in terms of progression. So I decided to regroup and focus again on my own subject of geography. So I worked in a faculty, and a faculty had 6 different subjects, and I was the only geography teacher. So I became, I suppose, the de facto subject lead with all the responsibility, but again, not kind of the remuneration or the management to go along with it. The role of curriculum leader, so the one that was next up for me, did become available, and I did go for it on an acting basis, and I was successful in going for that, but I wasn't really planned or I felt the experience for it. It was too big a leap for me at that stage. I hadn't had any training or coaching or development towards that, and all of a sudden I was in charge of 6 subjects and all the teachers and all the exam admin and all that sort of stuff, and I didn't enjoy it. I loved the experience of it. I did it for 2-3 months, I think, but it just made me think, by being in the role, no, I don't think this is the role for me. So that's my something that was a leap too far. I think the third approach was the bridge to where I am just now. I kind of took a different approach again. So, I chatted to people who were experienced in the role, in the pastoral side of things. It was clear that people relationships and positivity, sort of setting the weather with people that I work with every day, was kind of a main skill of mine. I did approach very experienced guidance teachers, and they, I suppose, became sort of informal coaches, enabling me to get a sort of plan in place for how I could get into a permanent role with the principal teacher guidance pastoral side of things. I had to be able to compete with people who had lots of experience in that area if I was to get a position, or people doing acting posts. So with the sort of guidance, the coaching approach from those experiencing colleagues, I did almost like a mini version of what I'm doing, but when I was still a classroom teacher. So I've got a caseload of 200 just now, for example. I took on 8 pupils at school. And again, I just had 1 period a week allocated where those 8 pupils became mine, and everything to do with their well-being, attainment, challenges, etc. were mine. And that was enough to get me the experience for the next step up. So doing that, I was able to get a maternity leave cover post at a different school. And then the maternity leave cover post managed to allow me to compete with other people to get the permanent role I'm in just now. So that's, 3 different roles, that last one being the bridge to where I am. I think carving out time is the hardest thing. I think Claire said that. The day goes at 9:30. It's the same in my context as well. Yet what do you do there? And I think I have to sometimes prioritise things by impact. And unfortunately, some things just have to go. There's always the essential things I have to do, but the things I want to do, it's all about what impact will they have that day, that week, that term. And that's how I choose how I allocate my time. I think my biggest tip for everyone here, any aspiring middle leaders, is if you've got an idea or a problem, both of those, is actually going out and socialising that idea or problem, going out and speaking to people face to face. Find some champions, find some people who are going to kind of buy into that idea and take it forward. It's very, going to have more success probably doing it that way than if you say just send an email or attempt to speak to all staff all at once while there's 300 other things being launched at the same time. So that's my tale of how I got here, folks. I'm yeah, I would definitely say take up any coaching experience and speak to those experienced staff. I think they're key for getting the kind of the right advice to get to where you want to be with your career. Thank you for listening, folks, and I'll now pass you over to Aideen, who's in Ireland.
Thanks, Neil. Hi, everyone. My name is Aideen McNamara, and I'm a primary school teacher in a senior school in Dublin in Ireland. We're a school with 460 pupils from 3rd class to 6th class, ages 8 to 12. So we have 16 class teachers, 7 special educational teachers, 10 special needs assistants, and our principal. When I started teaching in my current school, I began in 2002, and at the time our school was a very exciting place. It still is an exciting place, but at the time I walked into a startup school with only 6 classes and 6 teachers. So for me, joining this development school was a wonderful experience. It gave me the opportunity to be involved in have an active voice in the teaching and the learning throughout the school, to inform policy development and decision making, and also to unofficially mentor other teachers while at the early stages of their profession. So after 3 years of working with a very dynamic staff and a wonderful principal who supported me, I felt the urge to explore a role in leadership and management. So I suppose I believed I was ready to spread my wings a little bit and take on new responsibilities and leadership opportunities. So I subsequently applied for the role of Assistant Principal 1 in the school. So in 2005, I became part of the middle leadership team, a role I still hold and really value today. The role of middle leadership, or assistant principal as it's known in Ireland, is really rewarding, very challenging, but rewarding as well. For years in Ireland, when you were appointed as assistant principal, there was no formal training for your role. So the only real guidance I received at the time was based on informal feedback from my principal and discussion with him. So I'm glad to say that the practice is slowly changing and evolving, and with the help of Centre for School Leadership and the PDST, things are changing with the core, the leadership development program, and the middle leadership project with CSL, and indeed shining a light on middle leadership through this Blether today. So our Department of Education in Ireland has also launched guidelines on leadership through the publication of the Looking at Our Schools document in 2016. So this is a quality framework for primary schools, which aims to assist schools in school self-evaluation and development. So this document has outlined 2 dimensions: to look at high quality teaching and learning, and then to further develop leadership and management. For us at the time, it was invaluable. I feel it's also invaluable for schools, but to actually have a document that could guide us. So it has given us the opportunity to just guide middle leaders and to look at our experiences, our knowledge and our attitude, and also for self-evaluation, you know, to look at what we're doing well and how to do even better. It has statements of highly effective practice, so it sets a target and something that is attainable for us. So in my role in middle leadership in the Irish context, it's important to note that I am full-time special educational needs teacher with a full teaching timetable, which is quite different to other people's experience of middle leadership. But in Ireland, that's the way it is. My duties are to be carried out without prejudice to my class teaching. So this is probably one of the most challenging aspects of my role, finding time to do all the things that I actually want to do within my post. And yet, to look at the flip side of it, it also means that I am in touch with current practice in the classroom, that I work and see things at class level, and I work closely with my colleagues and can be a leading voice for them. So equally, I understand the practicalities and the demands of life, daily life in school. So my main leadership responsibilities across my school are for literacy and assessment for learning throughout the school, coupled with other administration duties and pastoral duties. For me, the key principles that underpin life as a middle leader are being adaptable, accountable, and approachable. I am currently teaching and leading from the 3rd revised primary school curriculum since I graduated. So you can guess how much policy development, curriculum development have been involved in that over the years. And it has certainly been a test of my own adaptability. I feel it's really important to upskill yourself in your subject area. I would encourage all middle leaders to try to engage in continuous professional development if they can. It gives you the confidence to lead your area and to be a gatekeeper to embed new practices and new initiatives within your subject. And that's where the accountability lies. Being a middle leader invites you to hold that middle ground in schools. So we have responsibilities vertically upwards, vertically downwards, and laterally to middle level peers. We aim to lead from the middle as opposed to just assisting the principal, and it is not always an easy task. Being approachable and being able to bring staff along with you is the key in this regard. So in 2010, I decided to do some extra training and take on some extra training, and I became a mentor and a facilitator for the National Induction Programme for Teachers in Ireland. This wasn't something that was on my list of middle leadership post duties, but it allowed me to see life through the lens of an NQT, and I felt passionate about offering support to NQTs in their first year of induction. Again, it was something I never had myself. And as an NQT, I valued that somebody would be there for me. It was something I never had, and I saw it as an opportunity to guide and lead other teachers at the challenging time of their career. The work is extremely rewarding and allows me space to develop closer relationships and with my colleagues, and to indeed encourage them to lead. In encouraging teachers to lead, we have found that teach meets have been very successful, where we offer our teachers the opportunity to share their practice at a staff meeting for 10 to 15 minutes in an area they teach well or have an interest in. This is kind of a semi-formal role for them, where they can feel comfortable, and it has worked really well, and I would encourage other people to try it. It is, and I suppose staff are always appreciative of new ideas and new ways of doing things. So in fact, developing the leadership capacity of others is a priority for schools in Ireland, but it's also one of the most challenging aspects of our role. It's not just about getting things done, but it's also about drawing other staff into that leadership space. So I hope today I have shone a light for you on leadership in Ireland. And just to finish with a simple quote, a leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. Thank you.
Okay, well, it's my turn now, and I just don't know what to say. How can I come in after that, dearie? Thank you all so much, the 6 of you. That was amazing. What I want to thank you for is your enthusiasm, your passion, and your honesty, and for giving us such an insight into the different roles of middle leaders across our 3 nations. I think it's really brought to light, and there's lots of questions going on here. So how Donald and I are going to manage to facilitate this question and answer part or discussion, I'm not quite sure, but we shall give it a go. So what we're going to do, I'm going to start off with something I've thought about as you were talking, and that was the word balance. It kept on coming up. It's that balance. And what I'd like to do is ask 1 or 2 of you just to explore a little bit further about how you balance priorities. How do you balance being a lead classroom practitioner, which I can see how passionate you all are about, with also being a visible leader? Who'd like to come in there with a response? Which one of the 6 of you is going to start us off? Claire, do you want to come in there?
Yeah, I think I've been head of year, head of 6 now for 6-7 years, and I think that amount of time has given me the experience to be able to kind of jump between those 2 roles with quite a bit of confidence. So my priority is my role as pastoral leader. It's my role as head of year. I've been teaching for a long time, and I have to accept that whilst I want to be an excellent classroom practitioner, and I can do that sometimes, some days that's not going to happen. But I know the students know that even on the days where I'm not quite firing up from their point of view as a teacher because something's happened in my year group, or I've got to deal with a fallout from my 6th form, they know that I'll mop that up and fix that in the long term. So I've stopped putting pressure on myself to deal with things on an hourly or daily basis, and I look a little bit more at the big picture and try and balance it out that way.
I liked what you said, Claire. When you started off, you talked about how you like things organised, and you had to realise when you became middle leader that actually that's not going to work, is it? So no, that was really interesting. Thank you for that. Anyone else? Hannah, do you want to come in there?
Yes, definitely. I think it's that blend of learning, teaching and leadership together. So with all that you lead and all that you do, it always comes back to classroom practice and making an impact on those learners that you're with every single day and the staff that you work with. So I think it's the three of those aligned and, you know, stepping back and thinking, what is a priority right now? What needs to happen now, or what can happen next? Because even though I like to think we can't do 101 things at one time. And there does need to be that sort of that lens of what is your priority.
Absolutely spot on there, Hannah. We've got to all look after our own well-being as well. It's such an important part of this. Well done, thank you. You got a question, Donald?
Yeah, just one quick, you picked out a word there. I'm going to pick out a word as well, not to be outdone by you, Sue. And seeing as I can't have a quotation like Hannah, I hear flicking through books to come up with something, but I'm lost. Inspiring is coming for the participants. Inspiring. So well done to all of you. You certainly inspired me, and the participants are giving back that feedback as well. I have two questions pulled out here because we are caught for time, unfortunately. But I'll start off by throwing this one out to you, coming from the chat. What skill do each of you feel you have that stands out in your middle leadership role? So yourselves as a person, what skill have you got that actually comes out in through your middle leadership or middle management role? And we might actually go, we have two questions. We might go around to three of you for this and maybe three for the other question as well, if that's okay, Sue. Natalie, you're straight in.
I think one thing that's certainly been mentioned a lot tonight that I think is probably the centre of a role for many of us is the values that you hold, your compassion and your understanding. And it's realising, I see a few questions that are to do with bringing staff along for changes, and it's actually having a bit of that understanding. So if someone is quite resistant to some form of change, it's delving a bit deeper into that and considering, well, why is there a resistance there? So I think in relation to staff, in relation to families, in relation to pupils, it's holding your values at the centre of everything that you do.
Very good. Thank you, Natalie. Anybody else? Hannah? No
I'm
quote.
that one that hates...
You have to answer this without a quote.
Yeah, I'm that one that hates awkward silences, so I'll just come in and put my hand up for all of them. Yeah, I think it's also that echoing sort of what was said then with values, but that drive and enthusiasm and being seen as having that energy so that others can sort of reciprocate that energy as well. And they've got that belief that you can do it and they can do it, and together we can make a difference. A little quote at the end.
Thank you very much, Hannah. Certainly, I don't think there's any awkward silences in your company. And as regards energy, my energy levels were waning a little bit at 5 to 4, but I'm ready to climb. Carrantoul is just across the field from me, the highest mountain in Ireland. And after listening to you, I'm ready to take it on in the dark. Jonathan, I'll come to you and I'll put you in the spot there.
That's okay. I think, like Hannah and Natalie said, being encouraging and also being aware to maybe take a step back sometimes when you're leading a role, that to give somebody the chance to take the lead in something or to let their voice be heard, and to be a good listener, because sometimes I think people just need to air their feelings about it or share maybe their concerns, and that you can row in then and support them and be encouraging and be organized in what you're doing and realistic in that when you're bringing something to the table, that you have a plan and you have supports there for people, that they can take what they need from it and kind of spread it on a whole school level. But I guess being able to step back to let people step forward if they need to and give them the chance to shine as well.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. Sue, do you want to go back? Have you another question? You can go back to reading for the last one.
I've got another one that came into the chat, actually. I think it was, who was it from? It was from one of our associates, Jonathan. And I thought that was quite an interesting one. Do you as middle leaders feel well prepared to take on a senior leadership role? Is it looking appealing to you? I think that's a good question. Thanks, Jonathan. Who'd like to come in there? Who's going to be brave? Go on, Neil. Thank you.
Yeah, I certainly feel prepared now because there seems to be in my local authority now, there's a lot more support from middle leaders. I think don't know the reasons behind it. Maybe it's a smaller authority. But yeah, my stories from before, I didn't feel those options were there. I didn't feel like there was particular, oh, you can go on this middle leadership course, or, oh, this is your management training or anything like this, or this is even how to manage your time. It was very much down to me just trying to figure all that out myself, but definitely seems to be changing. And as soon as I took on this role here, I was able to access a middle leadership sort of CPD like over a couple of months, and you can still tap back into that as well. And then being able to do the course, the Middle Leaders Driving Change in Education Scotland just now. So I definitely feel there's a lot more support out there, and we're getting more like emails in all the time about, oh, and here's another support, or here's even more coaching specific for this, or things out there. So I feel it's something that's changing, which is great, and we seem to be getting recognised more as middle leaders, and there's a real need for that. So that's my perspective, is maybe not in the past, but there's a lot more now.
That's great, Neil, and that's interesting, because that takes me on to possibly the last question, I think, if that's all right, Donald, because it feeds in just after that one. I loved quite a few of you really focused on the coaching and inquiry. I noticed that was coming out, which is fantastic. So what do you think are the benefits of a coaching model? Anybody got any comments on that one? Anyone going to come forward? Trying to think who was measured. Go on, Claire.
Claire is coming in there.
I can see Hannah's ready there as well. I know you mentioned it. Go on, Claire.
I just think it's just so integral to everything that we do. I think, and when you said coaching model, my brain instantly froze, and I was like, what does she mean? And then I just realized that it is the job. It is what you do as a middle leader, and it is what you experience as a middle leader. And I think we're smack bang between the two. I think I experience from all the senior leaders I work with coaching, formally and informally. And then with the students I work with, the tutor team I work with, my colleagues in middle leadership, you know, there's a huge number of middle leaders in a high school, and that coaching and questioning and talking through is the most important part of any development I've faced. You know, I've been on a number of courses and a number of training sessions, and the most important part of any one I've ever been on is that time where you question and talk through your job and your role with other staff, which I think just underpins all of it, really.
Absolutely, Claire. I think you're right. I think creating that coaching culture is so important. Do you want to come in to finish there, Hannah, before I pass over? I can't believe how...
Yeah, definitely. I think it's that sense of sort of finding out the solutions for yourselves, isn't it? Because you can all be told to do something, but actually taking sort of ownership and accountability in exploring what's right for you and how you're going to make a difference and make a change in that way. So it gives you that sort of sense of empowerment and accountability.
Absolutely. Thank you, Hannah. On that note...
Sue, can I just come in and ask our panelists to do one quick thing while we're wrapping up? Our panelists, if you go to the chat and answer this question for our guests: what professional learning opportunity has been most powerful for you? So while Sue is handing over and wrapping up, the panelists, if you go into the chat just to share with everybody, what professional learning opportunity do you feel has been most powerful to you? So thank you very much. Sorry there, Sue, I'll let you off.
Great, Donald. I just want to say it was wonderful to hear such enthusiasm about leadership. So thank you, the six of you. I'll pass over to David Burgess from Scotland to say our goodbyes.
Thank you. Hopefully you can hear me. What a fabulous session. It's an absolute privilege to hear all the stories from our six middle leaders. So thank you to Natalie, to Claire, Jonathan, Hannah, Neil and Aideen. It was fabulous to hear the different stories. There were so many differences, yet so many similarities within there as well. And it's really, and thank you as well to Charlotte in the background for doing all the work to support the session actually happening. Important to say, this is not the end of the conversation. We've certainly shone a light on middle leadership, but for the Tri-Nations, this is really the start of the conversation as we explore how we work together to further professional learning to support our middle leaders. And the key things that came through for me were about the positionality of middle leadership, the importance of professional learning, which came through from everyone. And can I just thank all the presenters for their honesty, integrity, and their passion for the role. Hopefully it's been useful for everybody who's been here today. And thank you so much to everybody for coming along to the session and getting involved in the chat pane and giving us questions and comments. Thank you to everybody and hope you enjoyed the session, and we will see you all again soon.